Okay, so welcome to today's webinar where we will be talking. It's not only like your 2026 half marathon or marathon, but I had to put a title, okay? So that's why I picked this one. But we will be talking more a bit in general, so also like trail running, what I said, and then actually something, and I'm very happy that I saw this question a lot coming up, which is about recovery because I think that's becoming like my favorite topic to talk about. But let's first introduce myself a little bit. So my name is Lisa. I'm not just running around and spreading things, let's say, spreading happy vibes. I am also a certified personal trainer. I also have a degree in sport physiology. Damn, it's been a long day. For endurance athletes, analyzing running technique, and SEC and plyometric training is a referral to the it's like an extra course within the strength training. So that's just yeah what I do or what I have as background. But let's talk about more interesting stuff, such as the basics when it comes to getting your running goals achieved. So, for example, the people who have Garmin might recognize this line, let's say, because this is a line that shows if you're like productive, maintaining, unproductive, or speaking. So, as you can see, like in October, at the like the 27th, I was still like maintaining. And then from starting that week onward, I've been like bim, 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 going productive. But it is very important when you are productive that you also keep track of the following metrics, which on the left side is your resting heart rate, and then on the right side is your HRV. So what you can see, wait, yeah, I have an arrow. So over here, you can see my resting heart rate. So even though if you are productive, that means that you are increasing your training load and that also your body is well adapting. I can see this as well because my resting heart rate also stays actually just went down a lot because before I think that 27th of October it was around 45 and now it had even dropped to 42 even though I'm training a lot more. So that also means that actually my body is really well adapted and also my nervous system, which you can see over there, is also very, let's say, regulated. So it's also not like overreaching or doing too much, too little, etc., etc. So what is, for example, very important with your HRV is it is kind of a broad spectrum you can be in, okay? So as you can see here, it's the gray area. And just to make it like a little bit like, let's say, funnier for yourself, try to see it a bit as a game, okay? So try to see it a little bit. Those dots is where, like the gray area is where you should keep the dots, and the dots are actually just the days. If you're going below, that actually means that you're not resting enough, you are overstressed, maybe even under fueling. If you go above them, then it actually means that you are improving. But if you keep the whole time above the line, then it also means that you might not be doing enough. However, that doesn't really happen a lot, especially for our endurance athletes because we just love to be active. But those are actually two factors that are very important to take into consideration when we are training. Then also Garmin here, the right column is actually like the highest heart rate that Garmin detected that day. And as you can see, for example, like November 16, I had a rest day. I can just see it from here. Then here I most likely did some like pace training. Here, I think I did some alternative training, interval training, base training, and the bottom one I can't see. But that also just shows that it is very important to have different kinds of training and not only have heart rate. Because if you only have heart rate, you're going to be putting a lot of stress on your body, and then also is going to translate into your HRV, which is going down. But then on the other hand, if you only have like 110, 120, then also you're not going to be training enough or putting enough, let's say, sometimes stress as well on our body. Because at the end of the day, it is also important to put stress on our body to keep improving. Because what happens with training is that every time when we train, we create little tears. And we get better by recovering those little tears, because every time our body is going to recover them, our body is going to say like, hey, but actually we want to be better, because we want to make sure that next time that this exercise happens, that we don't have to put in that much effort again to restore ourselves. So that's why putting stress on your body, but then very well thought of, is going to help you with improving. And that's also why too much of zone 2 is also not going to help you. Like the whole balance, you need to have a little bit. For example, here is a chart of my training zones. So as you can see, because also I'm an ultra athlete, so that means that I need to prepare my body to be functioning a long period of time. If, for example, I would be doing more like a 10K or like a half marathon, then I would most likely be more in zone 4, because I would be training more interval training, more speed, etc. as well. Okay, so that's also something to really take into consideration. Because then, for example, if I would be preparing a half marathon, then my zone 1 would be like lower, and then this block would actually be more in the zone 4. What happens nowadays that a lot of people, they are not really training in zone 2, and that is all just because of their ego. um I have a lot of athletes in the beginning. After a while, they really learn the benefits of zone 2, but in the beginning they're like, yeah, but I can't run in zone 2 because I'm so slow. But it's like, yeah, to whom do you compare yourself that you're slow? Because if I compare myself to Usain Bolt, I am slow as fuck, you know? But if I compare myself to maybe like a friend of mine, then I might be faster, you know? So it doesn't really make sense to be saying like, yeah, because I'm slow. I don't know who you're slow compared to, you know? So that's why it is so important that zone 2 to respect it in the beginning. Because also, let's say your zone 2 is until like 150. That actually means that the whole spectrum until 150 is where you can play with speeds. And the broader that spectrum is, the more you can also start playing with speeds. So that's also one of the reasons why zone 2 is so important. And there's also like a lot of physical processes going on, but I'm not gonna go into that. But just think a little bit about zone 2 is going to help you with the interval section, of which you can start playing more with speed than later on. So it's just, yeah, the building block actually of your pyramid or of your house. If the lower floor isn't strong enough, then also the top floors is, yeah, just gonna be a mess. Then, yeah, that's what I said. So also zone 2 is very important for our mitochondria. Those are like the energy machines, let's say, of our body. So that's over here. Then also when we are training, our heart is a muscle. Okay, our heart is not just a heart, our heart is a muscle. And that muscle, just as our regular muscles, needs to get adapted to the input we are putting on it. Because, for example, if you're just jumping from a really high building, no, from high building, no, from like a high stone in the beginning, you're most likely going to feel it. But then if you keep on repeating that same action, after a while, you're not going to feel it that much anymore. And that is just because of adaptation. So also with running or any other kind of sport, it is very important to allow your body that adaptation to make. And it is easier for your body to make that adaptation in zone 2 than in zone 4. So another excuse to be respecting your zone 2. And this is something that a lot of people underestimate, which is your stress. And that is in today's world. And I mean, I've also been there and I'm getting better with it. It's not over 100% yet, but I'm getting better with it. It's just regulating your stress. This can be financial stress, living situation stress, social life stress. Literally, like all types of stress is going to be detrimental for our health and also for our body and our performance. So that's why this statistic is also something that honestly I really take into consideration. Because for example, what you can see over here in March, I had a higher peak, and I was literally because I was injured. So I had a lot of stress because of the injury, because obviously something was wrong in my body, but then also because for me it was like work-related issues, so also financial related issues, you know? And that also was really not helping with my recovery. But then the moment that I was like, okay, it's gonna be fine, it's not the worst that can happen, etc., then you can really see the decline in my stress. And that was also actually the moment that I could start running again. So that's why it is very important to try as much as you can minimize your stress. I know it's not always possible, but just a piece of advice, most of the time we also overcomplicate life. So just try to make life as easy as possible. And with that, I mean, learn to be bored. It is something that nowadays, just next, like tomorrow when you're outside, try to really look around you, and people need to be doing something all the time, whether that be on their phone, talking with someone or whatever. But you will never, ever, ever see a person just sitting somewhere. And that is exactly what I'm meaning with learn to be bored, learn to be doing nothing. So also your body has the time to actually digest all the stress, all the input, all the things happening around you. Um, yeah, that will also lower your stress. So that's why next time, for example, you need to wait for someone, instead of immediately grabbing your phone and scrolling or whatever, just try to like sit and do nothing. Or for example, if you have like some time in between, I don't know, like cooking and cleaning, just literally try to go sit on a chair. In the beginning, that can be just 2 minutes. Try to sit on the chair and do nothing. It is difficult, but it has been proven really that it helps with lowering your stress. So yeah, even if it's only 5 minutes a day, we do have 5 minutes a day. Okay. Then, also very important for making progress is fueling. You would be amazed with the amount of runners that are actually under fueling. So here is just a small tip as well, on what to focus a little bit, let's say, with yeah, what to eat before, during, and after. So pre-workout, we want to be going for fast carbs, so simple carbs. And this can literally just be as easy as a banana, some dates, or a rice cracker with some jam, or as I shown here with some honey. Just some kind of fueling that is very easily absorbed by our body. Okay, we want sugar. We want sugar. I know this is not a very popular thing to say, but we runners, we want sugar before we go training. And then during our workout, what we want are gels, because gels are just pure sugar, but they're also pretty expensive. So what you can also do is you can just literally buy some gummies from the store. They're also filled with sugar. You might have to eat a little bit more of them, but they will also do their trick. And then also hydration. It's not for nothing that they say that our body is made 70% out of water, and even the slightest disbalance of 2% can already have a huge impact on actually your whole performance. So that's also why very important to be drinking water. Then electrolytes. I know it's a hot topic, but it has also been a very marketingized topic. So with that, I mean that nowadays, like I don't even know how many electrolyte brands there are. But that doesn't mean that we only should be doing drinking electrolytes. Electrolytes are most likely need to be consumed if, for example, you are a very sweaty sweater. And that means that when you're sweating afterwards, you have a lot of like white on your face and on your clothes, etc. because that means that you're losing a lot of salt, a lot of the minerals, and that we are going to replenish with the electrolytes. If you're just sweating a lot and then you swipe it off and there's nothing like white residue, then also like just normal hydration is going to be sufficient, because at the end of the day, also in our food nowadays there's a lot of salt, and putting too much salt in our body is also not going to be helping ourselves. And then after a workout, so what I did 2 units of pasta and then 1 unit of protein, because that is what you should be going for after a workout. Units of pasta or rice, bread, those kind of things, or potatoes, because they are going to give us carbohydrates, and carbohydrates are fuel. Because during a training session, we are going to be using glycogen, so carbohydrates stored in the muscles, as an energy source. And for example, we start a training session with like a 100% glycogen charged muscles. But then when we get to the end of our session, we will most likely have around like, yeah, depending on the intensity, between like 70 and 30%. So obviously we want to be replenishing that. And that's why carbohydrates are super important. Also, don't forget the protein, because protein will help with repairing the muscle damage we've done. And then fats are also a very, very, very important macronutrient group that we shouldn't be forgetting. However, it is best to be consuming them on rest days, because it just takes a little bit more effort from our body to be digesting. And therefore, during our training days, we want to have fast energy, fast recovery. Then we can, continue with our training sessions. Now, how much time should you take for a proper preparation of a race? So for a 10K, more or less, this is 8 weeks. 16K or 10 miles, this is 10 weeks. 21, 12 weeks. And a marathon actually goes between 16 and 20 weeks. Obviously, it also depends on the trainingness of the athlete, experience, goals, etc. But this is, let's say, a little bit more or less the recommendation. So let's get started. Let's talk a little bit more on how the planning to do in your year. So first of all, what every runner should be having, regardless of the distance, of the discipline or whatever, is strength training, mobility, and then cardio. But with cardio, I mean actually alternative sports. So for example, this can be elliptical, spinning, cycling, swimming, rowing, whatever kind of cardiovascular sport that has no impact. Very important. And then obviously running. But how are we going to put everything into a plan, into a calendar, especially if you don't have a coach? Then first question we're going to ask ourselves is, how much time do I have? And really be honest with yourself. So how much time can you really put aside on a daily basis for working out? And we all have time. It's just about priority, okay? So for example, here I just put 30, 45 or whatever minutes. Then the next step, what we're going to ask is, how many times per week is it realistic to go for a run? So we're just talking about a run. So for example, in this schedule, I've put the longest periods of time. That would be an option to go for a run. So that's like Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. And the next question, what can I do on those other days? Because I do have time on those other days to do something. So I should take opportunity of it, right? So for 30 minutes, I mean, if you know what you're doing, a core and upper body workout can totally destroy you. Believe me. So 30 minutes is all it takes to destroy your core and upper body. 45 minutes, you can do whatever you run you want. 30 minutes, same strength training. Then the 45, 60 minutes is another run. 15 minutes, that is going to be like a little bit more difficult already. So we're just taking a rest day. Then on Saturday, another run. And then on Sunday, mobility. I know I didn't put in any other cardio here, but that is also because the cardio then depends on how many times a week if you want to run, and also what goal you're training for, etc. So ideally, you would replenish the cardio with a run, but for this example, I'm just really focusing on running. Also, the amount of days that you as a runner should be running really depends on how many years you're already running, how adapted your body is to running, and also how fast you recover. So, for example, you go for a run 2 days in a row, and the third day you wake up and everything feels a little bit sore. That is just your body talking to you. Okay? Because nowadays, a big mistake is that we keep pushing, pushing, pushing. We don't really listen to our body until our body just says this, and that this is most of the time an injury. So, yeah, also something we really do want to avoid. And then, for example, this is only for a 10K, but it's a little bit on how, let's say, you can spread the intensity before a race day. So race day, as you can see, is red because it's like high intensity, we're going all out. The week before is a little bit like bigger in intensity than the rest week. However, it's also not like huge. Then here, this one is actually already going to reduce the volume. The 2 weeks before is going to be peak. So that means, for example, for a 10K, this is going to be tough intervals. This is going to be intervals at race pace to really see how you feel with that, etc. Rest week, very important to really allow your body to recover from all the training sessions previously. And then what I call with sparks is like short interval sessions, like for example 200 meters, 400 meters, but to really give that, like in Spanish we say chispa. So to really give that, like, like a little bit like, yeah, sparks like to your body, to get those neuromuscular connections going on, to get the fast twitch muscle fibers connected and activated, and just to make your body ready for what's to come. And yeah, first thing we're always going to do, regardless of the goal we're training for, is we're going to be building. So this is an example for a 10-week race. But if you're doing for a marathon, then what can happen? Then for a marathon, the building blocks are going to be just slightly be more. Peak weeks are also just going to be more. So yeah, it really depends on the distance, how your week should be looking at. But this is a good start to see how you should be distributing the intensity as well. Because don't forget, people, you get better through recovery and not just pushing. Because also the cost of an injury, I mean, I'm not gonna go too much into detail. The cost of an injury can just be like very, very high. Also depending a little bit on the country. So that's why it is very important to either know what you're doing, or yeah, here as well some other costs, or yeah, ask yourself the question, what if I could avoid this? And especially if you're starting with running, or you're keen to knowing I might overdo myself, then obviously you need a coach. So just very briefly before we going over the Q&A, I have a finalized half marathon program in which is included strength training for runners, nutrition for runners. This course is 100% based on scientific evidence. So it's not gonna, I mean, obviously with my background, I did have the courses, etc. But I really wanted to make something like, hey, here are the references. So also, if you want for one of the articles more information, there's also the reference included, so you can find out more yourself. This one is with literally like all the knowledge, all the questions I've gathered over the years of people asking me who are doing marathons are answered in that course, and also running gates. So really, we're going to be looking at your running gait, where the weaknesses are, where to improve it, etc. And just something that I really want to highlight again, why you should have a coach instead of an AI plan. Because AI just tells you whatever you want, and a coach is going, like, let's say a coach is your running bestie. So he's going to say what you don't want to hear when you need to hear it. Just think of it like that. And yeah, that was a little bit it. I don't know if you guys have any questions. If something is still like, oh, I would like to have more information, then now is the time. We still have 6 minutes left, so if anyone has a question, right, I'm going to stop recording.